Students, welcome back to One Stop Law. Now, this lecture is just a continuation of our previous video on undue influence. So, in this lecture, basically, I will take you through some of the landmark decisions on undue influence or effect of undue influence on a contract. Now, first, let us quickly go through the various relations between which there can be cases of undue influence. I have told you it can be between a parent and child, a spiritual guru and disciple, guardian and ward. But the Nasheen lady, basically a lady who doesn't come to the public or who doesn't interact with people in general, who resides at home and has various restrictions. Fifth one is about a mentally infirm person, an old and indigent person basically. Then solicitor, client, doctor, patient, etc. Now, the first important case law in this regard is between a spiritual guru and disciple, which is the famous case of Manu Singh versus Umadat Pandey. Okay, what happened in this case? Basically, the spiritual guru, we know the spiritual gurus, okay, they generally, uh, give us all these things that first of all, you have this threat in your life on, and these are the ways you can get out of it. Okay, generally we go to them when we are in trouble, when our life is not running very smooth, but we have to understand that life is not smooth for anyone. But anyway, these spiritual gurus make people believe or have these confidence on them that they can kind of relieve them, make their life smoother. And in this case, what happened, the spiritual guru actually convinced this person that in your next life you will get a the various benefits and you will have a very good life in your next world. So for this, you in exchange of this deal, that in your next life I promise you to give lot of benefits to you, this person, the disciple, actually gifted all his property to the spiritual guru. And of course, later on he went to the court to avoid this contract, and the court did hold that there was this contract between the spiritual guru and the disciple was obviously under undue influence, because anyone would come under these promises that if I get a very beautiful life next in my next world, I might subdue to the to these benefits temporarily. So this is the first case where it was a contract between spiritual guru and disciple was held to be voidable under the factor of undue influence. The second was between Niko, Devi and Kirpa. Now this was a case between guardian and ward. Okay, so basically this Niko Devi was under the guardianship of her uh, cousin brother. Okay, basically her both of her parents unfortunately passed away when she was 2.5 years old, and she was placed under the guardianship of her cousin brother, and who was actually her guardian. Okay, and basically after a few years it was found that there was a gift deed executed by this Niko Devi in favor of the guardian, whereby she had gifted all her existing property to this guardian. So obviously, when she grew up and she wanted to avoid this contract, she went to the court, and the court did again hold that yes, this was a contract which was voidable at the option of Niko Devi, that is the plaintiff, the ward in this case, because her consent to the contract would not have been, said, we could not say that it was free, because it was influenced by, it was obviously unduly influenced, and there was some unfair advantage being taken by the guardian, that is her cousin brother who was her guardian. So therefore the contract was voidable at the option of the ward here, that is Niko Devi. The next case is of a Parda Nasheen lady. Okay, in this case, there was this illiterate Parda Nasheen lady who was herself incapable of transacting any business, and she conferred a grant of her whole substantial property without any consideration, okay, without any valuable consideration, in favor of her managerial agent. Okay, and it is a very old case actually, uh, 1811. So there was basically, at that time we didn't have our Supreme Court also, so it was under the Privy Council, and the Privy Council did hold that it was incumbent on the grantee, that is the managerial agent to whom she had transferred all her property. So it was the burden of proof was on the grantee to show that he had proper use of confidence reposed by the lady in him, and there was no undue influence. So the grantee, the managerial agent, had to prove that he had not exercised any undue influence on the Nasheen lady, and she completely on her own gave away the property to her. The next case is of Lakshmi Amma versus Telegala Narayan Bhatta, where there was execution of a deed of settlement which was executed by a person who was of advanced stage, was suffering from diabetes and other ailments, and whose physical and mental condition was not so stable. Now, he had executed this deed of settling all his property in favor of one of his grandsons. And the most interesting part was that he did the settlement excluding all other legal heirs, including his own wife and his own children. Now, this was the point where the contract seemed to be unconscionable, and obviously it was on part, the court held that it was on the part of the grandson to prove that this grandson had not exercised any undue influence on this person who was suffering from this mental and physical illness, that it was a completely bona fide transaction deed executed in favor of him, and it was not influenced by any sort of undue influence. So the burden of proof was held to be on the grandson or the donee, in whose favor this deed was executed. The final case is between the solicitor and client, the legal advisor and the client. It was the case of Takri Devi versus Rama Dogra, where an illiterate old lady living separately from her husband gifted practically all her property to her legal advisor, the solicitor, okay, which included an apple orchard also. Now, there was no other relationship between this lady and the donee except that the person was her legal advisor. So the court definitely held that the contract seemed to be unconscionable on part of the old lady. Why would a client, gift all her property to a legal advisor for any reason? So therefore, the contract was, the court held that it was an unconscionable contract, and the burden of proof was on the solicitor, the legal advisor, to show that it was not, done under any sort of undue influence. So basically, these are some of the case laws, students, important case laws on undue influence. In the next lecture, we will continue with the third element of, um, factor vitiating consent to a contract, that is fraud. Thank you, students.